Please proceed, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Welcome, everybody. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 6 p.m. by recognizing the traditional keepers of this land and specifically our neighbors of the Alderville First Nation with all formal territorial acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge that the municipality of Brighton is located on the Mississauga on an Anishinaabe territory and is the traditional territory of the Mississauga. The Council of the Municipality of Brighton respectfully acknowledges the Mississauga Nation as the collective stewards and caretakers of these lands and waters in perpetuity, and that they continue to maintain this responsibility to ensure their health and integrity for generations to come. So we're starting with approval of the agenda, and actually I have an addition. So I will need a mover and a seconder for a motion to add a report. The motion is that the January 24, 2022 Committee of the Whole meeting agenda be amended and a staff report from the Public Works and Environmental Department regarding environmental services, programmable logic controller, supervisory control, and data acquisition, hardware and software upgrades. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Mayor Ostrander and Councillor Anderson. Any discussion? All those in favor? Oh, I guess Candace has to do that.
Councillor Ron Anderson.
Yes.
Councillor Doug LeBlanc.
Yes.
Councillor Emily Raleigh.
Yes.
Councillor Mary Tadman. You're muted, Mary.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor, Deputy Mayor Laura Connect.
Yes.
Mayor Brian Ostrander.
Yes.
And that's carried.
Thank you. So next, I have a motion to accept the agenda and as amended, and I need a mover and a seconder for that. Councillor Rowley and Councillor Tasman. That the January 24, 2022 Committee of the Whole meeting agenda be approved as amended.
I'm ready to do the vote. Okay. Councillor Ron Anderson.
Yes.
Councillor Doug LeBlanc. You're muted.
Sorry. Yes.
Councillor Emily Raleigh.
Yes.
Councillor Mary Tadman.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Laura Connect.
Yes.
Mayor Brian Ostrander.
Yes.
And that's carried.
Thank you. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? None? Next, we go to citizens' comment, and I believe we have one. I'll start by reading through our rules of procedure. Any member of the public may submit comments or ideas to council or committee of the whole on matters scheduled on the current agenda. Each speaker will have 2 minutes per agenda item unless a decision is made by council or committee of the whole to extend the time period. Comments will be received by council or committee of the whole without comment or debate unless the chair requests clarification or further information from the individual addressing council. Council or committee of the whole will not direct or an undertaking by staff or any matter coming from the citizen's comment. Rules of conduct. The following matters will not be permitted during citizen comment. Complaints against members of council or municipal staff, matters beyond the jurisdiction of council or the municipality, closed session agenda items, including current or pending litigation or insurance claims and or pending claims by or against the municipality, comments with respect to minutes of council and advisory bodies, comments that are contrary to the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection Act, and the chair may conclude citizens' comment prior to the 10-minute maximum limit for non-compliance with the citizens' comments parameters, conduct of members of the public, or any other reason. And no person making a citizen's comment shall speak disrespectfully of any person, use offensive language or unparliamentary language, disobey the rules or order or decision of the chair. So I believe we have one citizen's comment from Mr. David Green. There he is.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Is my volume okay?
It is.
Thank you. For the record, David Green. I'm speaking tonight as the Vice Chair of the Brighton by the Bay Homeowners Association. The budget discussion is getting down to some nitty-gritty items, and we want to ensure that the money in the budget for plantings and landscape at the Brighton by the Bay wetland is available this year. This wetland is designed such that in the event of a large water event, there is a diversion weir in the manhole upstream on Mills Road. That will ensure that any large water events bypass the wetland and go directly to the marina. This would account for any large water event. This eliminates the fear of overponding, overpooling, or even flooding. When this project started in November 2021, we were in constant discussion with staff to enhance the beauty of this pond with the excavation and cleanup when it was completed. Things took a little longer than planned. In fact, we're still waiting for the feeding storm drains to be cleaned later on in the spring. The plantings and landscape are required for erosion control. They're there to prepare a waterfowl barrier to cover the excavation and tire tracks that occurred during the cleanup. At some times during the migration, we have counted over 200 geese at this wetland. The plantings and landscaping will discourage these birds from landing at the wetland. We've got some sinkhole areas that need to be filled, and a fair bit of the area needs to be hydroseeded, something that was always on the commitment list from staff. We also talked about Rockfill being brought in at the outlet so that the yellow barrier can be removed. And staff also talked about Rockfill at the inlet, again, in an effort to minimize erosion. This is one of the very few visible storm management areas in the municipality. We don't want the wetland to be a destination, but we are proud of the inviting and calming presence of our wetland. The town has already invested in how the wetland works. Now we need to confirm that there is suitable investment in how the wetland looks. This wetland shouldn't be considered any different than some of the other wetlands, particularly Harbor Point Pond, because they have received plantings and landscaping. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Candace, do I need a motion to? Oh, you're muted, sorry.
Sorry about that. I forgot to provide that to you. So it's just to receive citizens' comments, January 24th.
Okay, so I need a mover and a seconder for that. Mayor Ostrander, Councillor Rowley.
Okay. Councillor Ron Anderson,
Yes.
Councillor Doug LeBlanc,
Yes.
Councillor Emily Rowley,
Yes.
Councillor Mary Tadman,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Laura Connect,
Yes.
Mayor Brian Ostrander,
Yes.
and that is carried.
And thank you to Mr. Green for bringing his comments forward. And I believe that that's part of our, was that part of our discussion tonight? The operational part of that? I believe so. For some reason, I cannot remember. I'm drawing a blank whether we've discussed this in the operating or whether we're discussing it in the in the capital. Okay. So next we go on to our staff reports, and we did receive an updated report from our Director of Finance, Ms. Whitfield. And did you want to start us off a little bit with some info, and then we can dive into the parts that we need to? Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
I just wanted to first of all say at the last meeting that we did set aside $18,000 for the planting program at Brighton by the Bay. And we also discussed Christmas light enhancement at Memorial Park and opening the washroom for the entire year. Those were our discussions at the first operating budget on January 10th. So highlights of this second draft, currently we're at 2.12%. Municipal rate and a blended rate of 2.24%. You can see that on page 6 of your second draft budget book if you wanted to look. Education rates have now been announced by the province and they're going to be held at the same level as last year. So it will be a 0% increase on education rates. At the last meeting, there was some discussion around bylaw enhancement again. And so there is a staff report from Preston Parkinson and Paul Walsh on the agenda or in the budget book for discussion by the committee of the whole tonight. And that report started on page 5. And then also we're adding a staff report this evening. Thank you to the committee of the whole for adding that. And Preston Parkinson can represent that report.
Did we want to take a look at that report now, or do we want to look at operating first and then talk about that report? Any preference?
Let's get right into it.
Mr. Parkinson, would you like to put that report on the screen for all of council? And are you able to speak to it just briefly as to what it is we're looking at?
Yes, I will, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you.
Is everybody able to see that now? The report dated January 24th?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll just briefly cover the contents of this report. So in January of this year, a little earlier this month, the manager of environment met with our SCADA integrator, and that's the system that runs our water treatment plant. And we can no longer get components for this system, so repairs could be delayed indefinitely if we have any kind of issues with it. So this report is requesting the funds to be drawn out of reserves to replace that system this year as soon as possible, just to keep continuity in the system as we move forward. And this system will be capable of handling any kind of increased volume that we have in the future, whether it be larger pumps with greater capacity or an additional well. And I'm happy to answer any questions that staff might have. Sorry, that council might have.
Thank you. So this basically is a requirement, not really a wish, correct?
That is correct.
And it would be funded through the water reserves, not tax supported, correct?
I believe that is what the director has instructed us, but if she has anything to say, you're more than welcome to speak up.
I see her nodding her head. So any questions of council from council members? Mr. Parkinson, can you stop sharing your screen just so I can see all the members of council? Thank you. I know if we do need to see it again, we might need to pull it up, but I can't see everyone. Mayor Ostrander first.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you for pointing out that this is coming out of water reserves. I appreciate that. I just want to note that the reserve fund for water holds $2.3 million. So $80,000, while a lot of money, won't be tragically impactful to this reserve fund.
Thank you. Any other questions from members of council? Councillor Anderson?
Yeah, I appreciate that. We're going to get right on this. When would this be able to take place? And how, with getting things in the return, that you order seems to be taking a lot of time these days. So not you, but everywhere. What do you foresee here?
Through you, Deputy Mayor. It could be a couple of months once they receive the go-ahead. It just depends on what's available out there, to be honest, and then they have to schedule to get in to do all the work. But we would be on it as soon as possible. We wouldn't delay at all.
Perfect.
Thank you. Any other questions from members of council? Councillor Rowley and then Councillor LeBlanc.
Thank you. My question is more of a general question regarding reserve and reserve funds. But if we want to stay on topic regarding this water issue, I would wait before we go off this page. If Councillor LeBlanc's question has to do with the SCADA report.
Thank you. Councillor LeBlanc? You want to go?
Yes, can Emily Rowley repeat that, what you just said about me, what my question is?
No, I didn't say anything about your question, Councillor LeBlanc. My question
okay.
is more in a general nature regarding the reserves and reserve funds, not necessarily about this report. So if your question pertains to this report, I will wait until we leave this page.
Thank you, Councillor. My question is that, okay, if this is required and it just came up, and we always talk about saving money and not going into our reserves. To me, I brought it up in the previous meetings, this 105,000 we're spending for an ECA to see if we need an extra well or a study. I sooner do the $80,000 instead of putting the $105,000 towards a new well and doing the equipment first.
Councillor LeBlanc, the rest of the capital budget has been approved, and I believe that was approved in a council meeting. So I don't think we're going to bring up other items at this point. I believe this improvement is required, and staff are looking for us to approve it tonight so that they can get moving on it.
Okay.
I understand you didn't agree with the other expenditure, but council has approved it, so we can't go back and forth on it. Any other questions from council about this item? And Councillor Rowley, you have a question about reserve funds. Can we discuss that when we're talking about the rest of the budget and make a decision on this, or does it pertain to this item?
It doesn't pertain to this item. It's just more of a general question. I'll give you my question and you can decide where you want to do with it. I was asked earlier regarding what's the difference between reserves and reserve funds. I wasn't able to clarify that, so I would just like a bit of an explanation on how that works. Thank you.
Thanks. Go ahead, Linda, if you're able to answer that.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Rowley, for the question. Reserves are essentially just a deferred revenue. So revenues that have been set aside during other years, other time periods. Maybe some projects are identified, but they're just carried in our balance sheet like a deferred revenue. They don't earn interest, and they can be spent on something other than what they were set aside for. Reserve funds are a segregated balancing set of funds. So they have their own cash account. They earn interest, and they balance all the reserves. The reserve funds balance with their own reserve fund bank account. It's not necessarily bank account, it's a cash account. We keep all our money in one account, but we separate it out, but based on reserves, development charges, parkland, and general funds.
Thank you, Linda.
Is that helpful? Yes? Okay. Okay, so at this point, does staff need a general agreement from council? Candace, will we need to vote on this later? What is needed? Or in a council meeting, will we need to vote on this?
So Linda, the recommendation should come from council or from the committee as a whole to council, right?
So through you, Deputy Mayor, we can just add it to our list at this point because we've already approved the other capital projects. So we'll add it to our list with consensus like we've been doing. And then as we see how we're doing for time tonight, and I'm not sure if this committee is going to want to meet again next Monday, or if everything will be wrapped up tonight. If not, we might want to put another resolution forward to council for the next council meeting to approve this so that they can get moving on the project. So it's a timing thing.
So right now you need a consensus, and is that correct? And or do you want a motion at the end of this meeting to council?
Right now is a consensus, Deputy Mayor, I think, and then as we move forward through the meeting, if we're not going to wrap up budget and make a recommendation to council tonight, then perhaps this one item can be moved forward to council by resolution.
Thank you. So at this point, then I just need to get a general consensus from council whether they're in favor of this item and having it added to the budget. Just a show of hands, or
Yes.
yes? Okay. And everyone's clear on what it is and doesn't have any issues? Okay. Okay, so then what we can do at this point is kind of, I think it's a good idea to start with page 5 of the report that we received. Director Whitfield has gone over some of this. We did add a number of items, which is on page 4. I think we all know what they are. I do have one question, Linda. The cost of enhanced bylaw enforcement, is that included in the following pages already?
No, not at this point, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. I just wanted clarity on that. So on page 5, we have some information about adding enhanced bylaw enforcement. It's not included in the new budget, but it's probably something we should start by discussing first. We've all read it, I'm sure, but perhaps if we have questions, who would we ask, direct our questions to from staff?
Deputy Mayor, either Paul Walsh or Preston Parkinson.
Thank you. So members of council, we've talked about bylaw enforcement or enhanced bylaw enforcement many times over the last number of years. I believe the amount that we've been given is, in general, it would add 33,000 to the budget because it would start in May, and let's see, I believe part of it is funded through, trying to find all my notes here. It's funded through the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure Operations Division operating budget. Yeah. If we recruit starting from May, the approximate cost would be 53,000, and we would add 33,000 to the budget. And the difference of the 20,000, Linda, is funded how?
Through you, Deputy Mayor, you already have $20,000 in the budget set aside for commissionaires, and that's being funded 20,000 from COVID funding. So that's the difference. The $20,000 is already in the budget.
Thank you. So it would be an additional 33,000. So I'm just going to open it up to council. If you have any questions or comments for staff before we have a discussion. Mayor Ostrander first.
Sorry, Deputy Mayor, you were looking for questions or comments before you open up for discussion?
Sorry, as part of the discussion, at the end of the day, usually we go through and we ask the staff member to comment. So go ahead with anything you might have regarding this.
I just wanted to comment that last time I presented the idea of bringing this forward, I'm grateful for staff for doing the research and providing us with this information. I would say I think it's a good idea. I recognize that it is an addition to, but I do think it's a good idea. Part of my information was that we were fairly light in bylaw enforcement for a municipality of our size, given the outreach I'd done with other municipalities of similar sizes. But for me, this isn't about keeping up with the Joneses. This is about the fact that we've had significant bylaw concerns, and from an enforcement and proactive enforcement point of view. And I think an addition to the department would help us with that kind of proactive bylaw enforcement, especially given the fact that, we're now looking at enforcing short-term accommodations. The more roads we add, the more parking enforcement we're going to need. We've added a no discharge zone in Presqu'île that's caused us some concern, and this may add that our ability to enforce those bylaws, among others. So I think this is the right direction to go.
Thank you. Councillor Anderson.
Just a few things. Today I did a little research. We say here it's about $80,000 for another enforcement officer. I checked around, and that's for a senior. That amount might be for a senior enforcement officer. I checked with Ottawa. Their numbers are substantially lower. I'll let Linda interrupt here for a moment if she wants. I see Linda's trying to.
Go ahead, Linda.
Deputy Mayor, Councillor Anderson, that money, the 80,000, includes payroll taxes, benefits, and everything. It's not just wages.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyhow, I just saw there's a real spread between someone who's been a bylaw for 3 years up to 8 years, let's say. And so 8 years, it would be in the $69,000 range, and three years would be in the $40,000 range. So anyhow, I'm just saying, you know what we do. You're the staff. I'm not going to interrupt with, but I'm just saying that sometimes when I know it's a budget. This is not the final decision on what that scale will be for Brighton, but I know we're watching every dollar right now, and we're adding dollars, and tonight we'll be adding some more dollars probably. So I'm just being cautious and doing a little research myself to see. And then the job description for this second person, is this person going to be equally a senior bylaw enforcement officer, or are they going to be a junior bylaw? And what would the job description entail to keep those folks busy all year round? There's enough to do, I realize it, but there's peaks and valleys in the course of the 12 months. So I'm very glad that we're going to, hopefully we're pursuing it and we're going to go ahead with this, but I'm just making sure that, we're not just putting a position in because a couple of us or some of us like the idea of another person out there handing out tickets or controlling traffic, but
thank you. So first of all, council actually doesn't decide what the bylaw enforcement officer will be paid. That is done by the scale that we have for the municipality. When we do hire someone, obviously we don't know whether they're going to be a senior or junior, or how many years they'll have been doing it. And that's why we do have to budget for the most reasonable amount here. But also we are talking to all of council. It's not just one or two that will make the decision. All of council gets to put their input in. Is there another member of council that has a question or comment at this point? Councillor LeBlanc?
Yes, let's see if I'm okay. I like the idea, but that's from 8:30 to 4:30 from Monday to Friday.
Yeah.
Most of the infractions and the calls we get are after hours and on weekends. So are we still looking for commissioners to take care of after hours and on weekends? Like Saturday night at the arena, the party went on till 3:30 in the morning, wrapping a car around a pole and stuff, and there was nobody to call to get these people in tasks. So I just use that as an example. There's a lot more, but that just happened on Saturday night. But what happens after hours and on weekends?
Thank you. I think it's the current position that's 8:30 to 4:30, but maybe staff can comment on that.
That's correct. The current law enforcement officer is an 8:30 to 4:30 time.
So this new position, would they be filling in on weekends or other times when we have issues?
That's the intent. We're hoping to have some off-hour allocation of their scheduling.
Okay, thank you. Does that help, Councillor LeBlanc?
Yes, it does, but you got to look at time off, vacations and stuff. But when you have a subcontractor, they're there all the time. they don't get to do that. So
I
those
see
are the
what
differences you got to look at.
So I see what you're saying. So you're saying you prefer to see us stick with a subcontractor. Is that your thought?
Not really. I'm saying if we're going to go with a second person, which we more than likely need, but we also got to have something for the weekends and at nights and on special events. And so it would have to be a mix of both.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Tadman, I saw your hand up.
Thank you. My biggest concern is that most of our problems, as we all know, happen either later in the evening and on the weekends. But as I read this report, it sounds like a full-time person would be working mostly days, but part-time if needed on the weekends. And I took two things. The other thing, do we have room for another full-time employee at Public Works? And the other thing, some of the tasks, I'm wondering, when we have several different people that kind of look out for something like streetlights in our public works, why do we need another person to do inspections and coordinate repairs on that? The safety and roads for signage, I would think that should be an ongoing thing. And if we are caught up to date, I can't see where there'd be a lot of work. I know that we're very short in our signage, but I thought that was being taken care of. So overall, I have a hard time supporting another full-time bylaw officer.
Okay, thank you. Is there, does staff want to comment on any of those questions or comments?
And just regarding office space, Preston and I did touch briefly on that issue, and we feel that there's a slot to be utilized and made available to that person. And yeah, I realize that there's going to be some head scratching in terms of scheduling, making sure that they are available during nights and weekends, particularly during the summer hours, make sure that there's a good response at that time. And when there are noise issues, then typically the OPP can be called and they will respond to assist bylaw enforcement when there's a noise situation involving a group of people. So, you know, I think there will be some significant benefit having a bylaw enforcement officer during the off-time hours and being able to even just be observational until perhaps bringing OPP in if needed. So I think that maybe addresses a couple of issues that were raised there.
Thank you. Councillor Tadman, does that answer your questions?
Sort of, not all together though.
Okay. Well, I'll go to.
I don't know where we're getting all this extra office space when it's the same building, and yet before it was always filled when I've been on councils other times with the offices. So now all of a sudden we have more room. I don't know where that came from. We haven't added on to the place.
Okay. Preston, do you want to comment on that?
Through you, Deputy Mayor. Yeah, just to touch on a couple of points. We've gained office space within this building by taking the large, huge offices and dividing them up into two. That's gained us a lot of space. Our large boardroom upstairs that was never utilized, we were able to put two offices off the end of that for some technicians and a GIS coordinator. So we didn't expand. We just took very large offices and made them into a more normal size to try to get more office space for very little dollars. And just to speak to the streetlight need, in the past, and what we currently do is we're paying a staff member overtime to go and inspect those lights 2 to 3 times a year. So by switching that role from what used to be the former water supervisor's responsibilities over to this compliance person, bylaw person, it would eliminate the need for that overtime because it would be scheduled in to their normal work week or work month. And so it would save a little bit of overtime at the supervisor rate.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Rowley, I believe I saw your hand up.
I know Councillor Tedman kind of brought up my points as well, but I was kind of the same. It looks like some of these jobs are kind of doubled up. Safety and roads for signage installation and compliance. Seems to me we have a road supervisor or an inspector or whatever that should probably be out doing that. We wouldn't have to send a second person to figure that out. And I thought the streetlights conditions, a lot of that was done by complaint anyway, if you notice those things. And I didn't think necessarily they would be done on weekends or overtime stuff. Just, as I said, the same as kind of Councillor Tadman.
Thank you. Any other questions from council at this point? We need to kind of get a general consensus as to whether we are in favor of this or not. I do have a concern myself that if we add more bylaw enforcement, we're going to receive more complaints from people who have had bylaws enforced and they're not happy. So we have to be ready for that side of things as well. I know that sounds silly, but even this summer I got complaints about people getting parking tickets because they've never gotten them before, and that will continue to happen. So that is a side of it as well. Anyways, council, let's get a bit of a consensus as far as what we want to do, and if you're not happy with it as it is, whether you have a different solution so that we can see how we want to move forward. Mayor Ostrander, you can go first.
My position hasn't changed. I do have a couple of questions. Well, one, and I'll just put them up there and ask staff if they can answer them, or get back to us if they can't. Have the savings noted from the potential savings from the overtime being conducted by a supervisor? Are those savings included here? My suspicion is no. So I'd be curious what those savings would be and if we can incorporate those into the budget. And my other question is the current bylaw officer not conducting the safety signage installation and compliance now? I thought that's who was doing it, not a public works supervisor. So those are my two questions, but my position hasn't changed on the issue.
Thank you. Go ahead, Preston.
Through you, Deputy Mayor. No, the amounts of the what we'd save in overtime were not included. We didn't have time to dig into the fine tunings of those numbers, and we wanted to make sure the number we brought forth to council was enough to cover the needs, and we didn't want to run short. So we didn't include those little bits and pieces and the odds and ends we'd save. And as far as the road signage, yes, the current bylaw person has been doing all that work. He has been since COVID hit, and we've used that to fill in some of his valley time because everything dropped off. So that was kind of a time filler. And that's hopefully what we're going to continue with this new person as we move forward. As more requests come in for signages and the regs change and things get updated, we'd have that person with the finite knowledge of all the signage and the regs and placements as they relate to all the OTM books from the government and the Highway Traffic Act.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Anderson?
I don't know how much overtime we paid in that area this past year, but I think if it was the job description was that they worked weekends or alternate weekends or whatever, evenings, some evenings, not all evenings, and there would be an on-call aspect for each of them, I imagine, and so there would be some overtime at some point, but a lot of it could be eliminated by scheduling and job description. So that was my point when I was going there with what level of would the next person be at? Are they going to be like a commissioner quality, or are they going to be a full-fledged like Alan?
Who would like to answer that? Paul?
You, Deputy Mayor, the intent is have someone who's more at an intermediate level so that they have some experience and can know how to write tickets and hopefully defend them at visual offenses as well as may be needed. One of the limits of the commissioners right now is that they really are only limited to parking tickets, and so some of the backgrounds that some of those officers have may not be able to maybe take and do some more fulsome enforcement activities. Now that the commissioners probably don't have people who can do that, but right now that's what we've signed up for. And so, you know, I'd be targeting somebody at the intermediate level who can really look at both the parking side of things as well as other general provincial offenses. And as the mayor alluded to, we have we're looking at having a short-term accommodation licensing bylaw, and so I'm hoping to have that person receive those applications and process those licenses and issue those permits, etc. So there'll be some extra tasks and details that will be needed for either the new person or the existing law enforcement officer to follow up on.
Okay, thank you. Does that help, Councillor Anderson?
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that, those comments. Thank you.
Other questions from members of council? Councillor LeBlanc.
Not really a question, Deputy Mayor. What it is on the safety and the road signage, I can vouch. I've seen what present bylaw officer has done. Very impressive. In the rural, he put over 100 signs, and there's still another 30 more to go. And they're all new signs, not existing signs. So I know that he has been working very hard on that. I have that. But I still have the concerns between 8 to 4:30 and after hours seems to when it happens and on weekends. I'm not saying we don't need another permanent position, but we also got to look at something like Councillor Anderson said, there will be a lot of overtime and stuff and vacation, but you got to look at what's going to happen. So maybe if you're going to get a new commissioner, if you look at the contract you give them, like there's a firm out there that's using ex-military police or existing military police that do commissioner work. So they know all the rules, the laws, and you can ask that they're accustomed to the bylaws of Brighton or educated to them. So you got to put that in the contracts. But you also got to look at weekends and after hours. And I don't see it addressed here. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're deciding whether or not we should bring on an additional bylaw enforcement officer. I'm sure that staff understand, we've all expressed it, that it's the weekends and evenings that are needed, and they would, I imagine, make that part of the contract. Are you, I know you've talked about commissioners as well, but I do need to get a sense from council whether or not each member is in favor of adding this, and if not, if they have a different plan. So Councillor Blanc, just before I move on to the next person, are you in favor of adding this or not at this point?
With modifications, I would agree to this. Without it, I won't.
Okay. Councillor Tadman, I think.
Yeah, excuse me. I just wanted to make one point. We have 20,000, is that correct, Linda, already in the budget for the commissioners that we used last year? We budgeted for that. And so you're looking for 33,333 this year, but that's only from May on. And we got to think of long term. This is another full person that we are going to pay for benefits, pension, everything. And as the pay goes, the grid goes, they could be earning more. And I just find that we seem to be just adding more and more people and maybe not getting the best service. So no, I'm not in agreement with this.
Thank you, Councillor Tadman. Would you be in agreement if it was a half-time position or just not
Yes,
at all?
that's all I was supporting last time, and someone that would work more the off hours.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Rowley?
Exactly the same as what you just said, Deputy Mayor. I
So
would
you-
agree to a modified, as Councillor LeBlanc said, a modified kind of description of what this would be. Thank you.
Councillor LeBlanc, I think was okay with a full-time but a modified description. Councillor Tadman was okay with it if it was more of a part-time, half-time position. Which one were you saying you're agreeing with?
Councillor LeBlanc, full-time with some modifications to the maybe job description.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Council, are you ready to kind of make a decision on this? We've heard from different people. We have different ideas here. The majority, I believe, is in favor of the full-time position, but are looking for some modifications or adjustments to what the job description would be. Is that the general consensus that I'm getting from council? Yeah.
Yeah, you've got it. Yeah.
Except for, and Councillor Tadman is more in favor of a half-time position. Okay, so I guess the question is for staff. You've kind of heard our conversation. Is council looking for staff to come back to us with the full job description, or are we satisfied with staff making the modifications, knowing that we've just discussed it here tonight? Go ahead, Mayor Ostrander.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'm from a budgetary point of view, from a budget meeting point of view, I think I'd be okay making the budget decision in terms of a full-time person. I think staff have heard us loud and clear that we're looking for modified hours, a modified position. And I would anticipate that staff would want to report back to council on what those modifications were to make sure that council was okay moving forward before we posted the job description. And I would look forward to that at a future council.
So from a committee of the whole standpoint, our job here tonight is to agree to whether or not we're adding the position. And at a later point, staff could provide the job description to council. Is that what you're saying? Yeah, okay. Is council satisfied with making that decision tonight of adding this to the budget? Councillor LeBlanc.
Through you, Deputy Chair. I cannot vote on this until I see the job description and how it would be modified and the modifications, how it would work. Because I've voted in the past and basically what has come back was not satisfactory. So I would like to see the full modification before I would approve a full-time position, how it's going to work and how it's going to fit. Thank you.
Okay, so we can't do that at committee of the whole. That's not our job. Tonight we will decide whether or not we're going to add it. I guess I just need consensus as far as the majority of council in that manner. Is everyone else okay with making this decision?
Yeah, let's make the decision.
Okay, just a show of hand as far as whether or not you're in favor of adding this position at a full-time rate. So I do have 4. That is majority. So I believe we can move on with that by consensus. And we will receive the job description, obviously, at one point. Okay, so if you turn that page over, it does show where we are at as far as the impact to the taxpayer.
Sorry, Deputy Mayor, Councillor Rowley had her hand up.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Rowley, I didn't see your hand.
Thank you. I know you're busy reading. That's okay. Although we made, this is just a recommendation to council. Council can still have some discussion around this when it ends up on our table, right?
Yep. Our job tonight is just to move forward and get
Right.
these things on the table. Yeah.
That's right. Thank you.
So the next item, like I was saying, the impact to the taxpayer, we can see, as Linda already discussed with us, that we're at the tax rate increase is at 2.11%. And at the bottom of the page, we see the overall is at 2.24%. Now we're adding this 33,000, which makes approximately how much of a difference? Are you able to tell us?
So right now with the bylaw enforcement compliance added, you're at 2.45% lower tier and 2.40 blended.
2.40 blended?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so the last time we met, we did talk about we went through the full operating budget. There were some requests for some changes and additions that were made, and we do have them in front of us tonight. Those were on page 4. All of these changes, Linda, that on page 4 they've been implemented into these pages from 8 on. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So what we're seeing, I guess I need to get an idea from council whether what we want to do tonight, whether we want to just go over these pages. I believe it's 8 until 8 to 11 is operating. And then we can decide where we want to go with that tonight, or whether we want to leave it to the next meeting. Mayor Ostrander, did you have a comment?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I do think there's one other issue we should discuss this evening before moving on to a more global discussion of budget, and that's with regard to physician recruitment. I know the Trenton Memorial Hospital Foundation originally requested that we pay $50,000 a year for physician recruitment. We have been paying $25,000 per year, and it's my understanding from Councillor Anderson that there's been some pushback, gentle nudging, I guess, from TMHF that we increase our allotment. And I'm not necessarily advocating for that. I just think that it would behoove us to have that conversation. I know that Quinny West pays $50,000 per year, and TMHF, I think, contributes $50,000 to the physician recruitment model. And there are other organizations that help out as well. I don't want Brighton to get left behind. On the other hand, I also recognize that our population is significantly lower than Trenton. So I'm wondering if we could have a discussion around that, maybe have a discussion around some modeling, and have a conversation about what we'd like Councillor Anderson to report back to the physician recruitment group.
Sure. Where is that? I'm just looking for it in the budget. Do you know a page as far as where we have that in our reserves? Sorry.
I didn't come across it, Laura. That's why
sorry.
I brought it up. I think we may have missed it.
No, I'm sure we didn't miss it. Linda, maybe you can help us. Sorry, I'm looking at the operating starts on page 11. I think I said page 9 earlier. And goes to page 14. I just want to see which budget it's included with.
My budget book, Deputy Mayor, from our first draft, because there was a lot more detail in there. It was included.
It's on page 13.
Sure, but if you looked at your original budget book, page 29, it discusses the amounts that are in our budgets, and it does say Docks by the Bay expiring on March 31st. We've only included 25,000 in the budget.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so at this point, we've only included 25,000, and they're hoping for 50. Is that what I understand, or from Brighton?
That's correct. They want us to match. Can I speak? They want us to match Quinny West and the TMH Foundation. So they feel, they've helped us get going, and they feel it's time now that we've got to put more of a push on to get doctors in the area. I'm saying area because we have to be focused on what we want to do too. So, and what we can afford. So,
Have we received any kind of official report from them for our budget?
I don't remember. What?
Nope.
No. Okay. I'd love to hear from council on this. Yep.
I think we received a letter from them.
We did, yeah,
some time ago, and I think I asked for that to be brought forward to budget. I'm not I'm having trouble remembering. It was a while ago.
Hmm.
I'm sure I can find the email though.
Mr. Castleman, did I see your hand?
Yes, you did. Madam Deputy Mayor, we have received some correspondence from our partner requesting $50,000 per year. That was a similar request to from the previous year, quite frankly. We do have an existing agreement that expires at the end of the first quarter of this year. So we do have a commitment of $25,000 from April 1st of 2021 till March 31st of 2022. If we were to consider a higher amount, let's say, for example, we considered $50,000, that $50,000 rate would not begin until April 1st of 2022. So if you prorated 25,000 in the first quarter and 50,000 for 3 quarters, the impact of the budget is about $43,750. But that's just an example. If you want to go there, just to give you an understanding of what the differential might be to the existing budget. So,
Okay. Yeah, thank you. That helps. So if we went to the 50, technically we prorate it and it'd look like 43,750 this year. I'd like to hear from council as far as their thoughts on this. Councillor Rowley.
Thank you. I like one of the comments that the mayor made regarding per capita. Do we know what that would work out for Quinte West if they're paying 50,000 for their population, and if we were to say do the same thing for Brighton, do we know what that number would be? I don't need that answer tonight, but I kind of like that idea that we're how many 12, 13,000? They're double us anyway.
Mm-hmm. And with most organizations where we are paying in this way, often it is per capita. We do find that more and more often, and because it's the easiest way to, and the most fair way, it seems, to calculate. Mayor Ostrander.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So certainly with our Quinte region partners, and I'm thinking of the Bay of Quinte, our Regional Marketing Board, and Quinte Economic Development, we pay on a per capita basis. And both of those organizations are kind enough to remove the permanent population at the Warkworth institution, understanding we don't get much from an economic development perspective from that group. But from a per capita basis, give or take, Quinte West has about triple our population. There are almost 44,000 last census, and we're just shy of 12. So I don't know where those numbers will land when we get the census data coming up, but I doubt we will have reached half, 50% of the population. So I am in favor of paying our fair share, and I am in favor of using Doctors by the Bay. I think they've been good for us and good to us, and they certainly have helped us bring on at least two doctors that I'm thinking of, maybe 3. And they have helped us with some out-of-the-box thinking when it comes to physician recruitment, and that's a good way to go. So I'm certainly not looking to reverse any decisions or cut any ties, but I do want a fair financial modeling for the municipality of Brighton, and I'm just not sure paying the same rate as a city 3 times the size of us is fair. So I guess I would ask Councillor Anderson if you would be willing to go back to them and just mention we've had this conversation about a per capita base pay, and is that a model they'd be willing to look at for the municipality of Brighton? And then we don't hold up the budget process. We can have the discussion come April and see what those numbers look like, and figure out how we pay our way moving forward.
No,
yeah, thank you. If we look at the size of our municipality compared to Quinte West, going per capita at the current rate would mean we'd be paying less. So I'm sure that's not going to work out that way. but it may be, something to think about, because in quite honesty, the whole idea behind per capita is the fact that we only have so many ratepayers in Brighton, and there's 3 times as many possibly in Quinte West, and that's why we can only offer so much, right? And anyway, I do like your idea. Maybe Councillor Anderson wants to add to that, or ask questions regarding that. And Councillor Blanc, I will get to you. I see your hand.
Yeah, can I just, I think the need for the area is huge for doctors.
Of course.
Quinte West requires even more doctors, and other areas in our immediate area need more doctors, and people want doctors on their doorstep. I understand that. But also residents have to understand, we work hard to get a doctor, and that doctor sets up practice in Trenton. They take patients from Brighton as well. So we sort of have to look at it that way too. We're looking at there's a big picture here, but it's trying to understand it all. There is some good things on the horizon if they all pan out, because we all know how we can be let down at times when you get excited about something. But there's potential for some doctors coming here. We have a couple of offices available. Right now, Bob, isn't that correct? Could you just confirm that? We have space available right now for a couple of doctors, right?
Yes.
It's a busy place over there. And in fact, that space is getting a little tight. Even though we have 2 offices over there, it is getting a little tight. Or it's probably got a lot to do with the configuration of the building. But anyhow, Quinte West has a lot of problems, as probably more so than us in some ways when you look at it. They haven't got space for doctors. They're concerned about where a doctor's going to set up, but they have a strong need, and the entire region has a huge need for doctors. There's a lot of doctors retiring in the area. I won't mention municipalities outside of ours. There's some real need, and because of that, there's going to be a bigger push on Docs by the Bay to support everybody, not just Quinte West, not just Brighton. So I'm in favor of continuing to work with them. They're a great group. They're all professionals and experts in the field. However, I'm not comfortable with the amount that our small municipality in comparison would have to pay. So I would go back to them. And I don't, I thought of the per capita too, and then it was pretty easy to do the math on that too. It didn't make a lot of sense after you take a quick look at it. So I think maybe we can talk and get some understanding that, we've got 2 offices open, let's get them filled. But Quinte West has a large need for doctors as well. So, who's paying for what? Well, we'll pay our share to get those two offices filled, and then on we go. It's called retention as well. Retention is probably just as tough as finding doctors, and I think the retention, they're doing an excellent job. The best they can, and we all know why people leave. It's retirement. No, retirement's the biggie right now. So if you want to leave it with me, I will talk to them and see if they'll, we'll come up with some happy number for everybody.
Thank you. Councillor LeBlanc?
Yes, thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. If I use the numbers the mayor gave, 40,000, 12,000 for Brighton, and they wanted 50,000 in basically funding, and if we did it per capita using ratio and proportion, our number would be 15,000. So if we're paying 25,000 now, we're almost paying almost double, other than 2,000, but almost double what Quinte West is paying per capita. So 25,000 is good, but that's just using simple ratio and proportion with the numbers the mayor put out. So the number would be 15,000 that we would give them if we went per capita. Thank you.
Correct. I think if we went per capita, unfortunately, I think that maybe Quinte West be looking at paying more in order to bring everyone. I think what they're saying is they need some more funds, but just to come to Brighton for those funds maybe not be the most reasonable way to go about it. Maybe the larger city, like Trenton needs to pay a little bit more, Quinte West a little more, and then we can add to ours as well. But that would be for them to maybe take a look at and come back to us with. Councillor Rowley?
Well, I've just been sitting here scratching numbers as well. So I was looking at that Quinte West pays 25, we pay 25, and we pay the other 25 per capita. So the other 25 for Quinte West, over there 44,000, or 25, or like I say, base Brighton on an extra amount would work out to maybe 7,500, which would put us at, 33, 34, instead of a total 50.
So what you're saying is a base rate of 25 for each plus a per capita amount?
Plus the per capita.
That certainly would be a model. I don't know whether as council, we want to tell them what we want to pay them, or whether we want to just throw this back at them and say we want more of a per capita, more of a fair sort of look at these numbers.
That's right. I'm good with that too. It should be fair. But maybe that's a way they could work it out and we could kind of compromise is good, right?
Yes, absolutely. Councillor Tadman, did you have your hand up at all or want to comment on it at all?
The only thing I just wanted to say, we have doctors that have come through this whole system, but we also, those same doctors serve the whole area. The doctors can't just take Brighton people, so it works both ways. So that was my only point in all of this.
Yeah, thank you.
Good point. Yeah.
So are we satisfied at this point to have Councillor Anderson go back to them and just say we want more of a structured per capita type of approach that we can look at? Yes, okay. That's what we'll do. So at this point, we're not going to make any adjustment to this budget. We're going to continue with it as it is as far as the docks by the bay. Okay. Okay, so that's all of the new things. We have gone over this operating budget before. We can go sort of, page by page, section by section. With the things that we've talked about tonight, is council comfortable with going through this and making a recommendation to, is the committee of the whole comfortable making a recommendation to council tonight? Or are you wanting to do that at our next week's scheduled meeting? It just helps us to have a flavor for, what we're doing tonight. Are we continuing to ask questions and have understanding, or are we moving towards a decision tonight? What's kind of the general consensus from council? I'd like to hear from you.
I have a question or two.
Sure, yep. Did you want to ask your questions as we're going through it, or is this a question regarding whether or not we're approving or not tonight?
No, I'll wait to see what everybody else. I've got a couple of questions. That's all.
Okay, Mayor Ostrander, do you want to comment on?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'm actually reasonably satisfied. I feel that we could probably move forward and make a recommendation to council this evening. We know the additional 33,000 brings us to 2.45%, 2.4 blended. I know it's not the under 2 that most of us were looking for, but given the pressures on a small municipality of our nature, it's not surprising. And I think staff have done an incredible job getting us here. So I appreciate the work of all the directors, particularly Director Whitfield. And I'd be prepared to move forward with the recommendation to council, understanding there are some questions that some members may have around some of the spreadsheets, etc. I don't want to cut that off at all, but I'm prepared to move forward.
Thank you. And if we do make a recommendation to council tonight, it won't appear on a council meeting until our first meeting of February, correct? And we could discuss a few of those things at that point in order to make the decision. But how about the rest of council? How are you feeling about asking our questions and making a decision tonight? Councillor Tadman?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I certainly didn't support all of the beginning of the capital budget. I abstained from that to see how things were going with the operating budget. And there's things that I don't want to support at this time, but that majority always rules, and I don't see any point in sitting around and going back and forth. I think we've made up our mind, and people have asked the questions they need to ask. So, you know, maybe just a show of hands at this point, because I just don't like going back and forth and getting nowhere, spinning our wheels.
Thank you for that. And I like to give council the opportunity to make sure that they have asked the questions they do want to. I don't like the back and forth either, spinning our wheels, but everyone should have the opportunity to ask questions. I do believe we do have some. So I don't think I'm going to ask for a show of hands yet, but I will talk to the rest of them or have the rest of council be able to ask their questions yet. Councillor Anderson, I do believe your hand was up.
Yes, thank you. We will wait for that Docks by the Bay final number before we say fine to the budget, right? Are we going to make a decision prior to getting that information, or are we going to wait?
Well, I see the mayor is shaking his head that we're not going to wait, that we will make a decision. Mayor Ostrander, did you want to speak to that? At least your thoughts?
Well, I don't think there's an appetite around council to double the payment to Docks by the Bay. If we were to increase, it would be incremental through the rest of 2022, with a want to have a larger discussion perhaps for the next budget. But and I think that if we did an incremental increase, we would simply ask staff to find the money from some source, some reserve source, or to borrow it and pay it back in the next year. So it's not, I don't want to wait for a discussion with TMHF, understanding that we're only likely to have an incremental increase, and that we can find the money from a reserve fund or through borrowing.
Yeah, I like your idea there, that if we could make that decision tonight based on being able to do that, borrow whatever, that would make a lot of sense, and we can move on and be good. Okay. In my opinion.
Thank you. Councillor Rowley, I know you had questions. So if you're able to, when you ask your question, if you're able to indicate which page you're on,
Okay.
It just helps us all to find where you are at.
All right. So both of my questions have to do with reserves and reserve funds. So page 8 and page 9. And I guess my question is, Ms. Whitfield, both in our reserves from the end of 2021 until the end of 2022, we're almost taking out half. Now, based on your explanation at the beginning of this meeting, a lot of those are from projects that we're still working on, right? So a lot of those monies out is for projects that haven't been completed, and that's where those dollars are going, correct?
Yes, so we do a report at year end, and we transfer monies into reserves so we can use them to complete projects at the end of the year. And so that's how we always see some fluctuation in the reserves.
Right, thank you. And again, in the reserve funds, there's significant dollars coming out of reserve funds this year as well. It makes about a $6 million difference between the end of 21 and 22. That's a lot of money. Are we taking money out of reserve funds in order to keep our tax rate down? Is that the reason we're doing that? Or is there another explanation?
You, Deputy Mayor. No, there's another explanation. This is not tax rate stabilization. What we're doing is we have gas tax funds that are used for specific projects that that through AMO, the federal government allows us to use the money for. So we've allocated some of that gas tax money bear in mind, you still have almost $1 million in there at the end of the year. And that's actually on a 5-year rotation. You have to spend what you've received within that 5 years. And so we apply that money to road projects. And actually in this case, even a fire department roof, a fire hall roof, because fire services are now allowed to, we're now allowed to use our gas tax funds for that. Modernization funding was the funding that we received in February, I believe, of 2020. And we had a number of modernization projects that we added to the budget to use that money. So they weren't necessarily projects that we would have risen to the top of our list, except for having the funds to spend to fund those projects. The other big one that we have on here is our wastewater. And you may have noted that we also were depleting that reserve in the year before, but the projects didn't get underway. And so again, we're depleting that reserve to get some of those projects moving forward. And also the reserve fund is the, that is given to us, it doubled actually in 2022 again. And it will, it's to assist us with some of our road projects. So we're able to add some road projects to our budget and maybe get a few more kilometers done and use those funds that were being provided by other levels of government.
Thank you, Linda.
Thank you. And the rest of council, any other questions? We have all our staff members here tonight. Any other questions from any of the other departments as far as the operating budget tonight? Councillor LeBlanc, go ahead.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just a comment on the Harbor Point, Brighton by the Bay Pond. The 18,000, I'm not objecting to it. I just want to make sure that if it's, we're not going to plant trees and then have to expand the pond. That's all I'm asking. Thank you.
Good question. Could staff comment on that, or? I'm not sure.
Through you, Deputy Mayor. No, there's no plans or need to expand that pond. And the plantings are just to make it, look good and function properly and bring it back up close to the standard it was at before, as far as grass growth and waterfowl control and that sort of thing.
Thank you. Councillor Rowley.
Thank you. Dare I ask another question?
Of course, go ahead.
I'm looking on page 11. There's a significant increase in expenditures in the CAO/clerks department. Is that to do with staffing, or are there other reasons for that increase?
Through you, Madam Deputy Mayor, the quick answer is yes, it is. The majority of it has to do with staffing. As you will recall, I brought forward a report for your consideration, for council's consideration, back on December 20th. And we itemized a number of different organizational changes within the municipality. And certainly in that area, along with the finance budget, some of those monies are being expended.
Thank you.
Members of council, any other questions? Councillor Rowley.
Thank you again. Looking under planning and zoning, also on page 11. Expenditures, once again, Mr. Walsh, maybe you explained this to me already, but I've kind of forgotten. Expenditures of 584,000, revenue of only 230. How are we going to balance this out going forward?
Through the Deputy Mayor to council. Yeah, we have had that past discussion and recognize that there is that gap between the revenues and expenditures there. But we're going to continue closing that gap, one, through our new fees and charges bylaw that took an effect at the beginning of the year. And secondly, with more direct administrative mechanisms for achieving higher rates of accounts receivable in terms of external costs being absorbed by the development applicant.
Thank you.
Thank you. And to that note, though, historically, those two numbers have not offset each other, have they?
In response, Deputy Mayor, you're correct that there's some decisions by Ontario Municipal Board, by courts, suggesting that planning, particularly at the front end, is more of a public benefit, and so that it's not like the building code that requires it to be full cost revenue neutral over a period of time. That planning costs and revenues are recognized as achieving a public good, and therefore not fully developer responsible.
Thank you. Council, any other questions? Councillor Rowley.
This is my last one. Thank you. On page 12, parking lot expenditures, $10,413 or $433, an increase of $20 only over last year is my guess. Seems to me that we've had some discussion over the last weeks regarding deficiencies in some of our parking lots, mainly I want to say behind Main Street, behind the bank. Is this going to be enough to fix some of those issues, Mr. Parkinson, or are we going to be looking for more monies down the road to fix these up? Or is there some monies elsewhere that I've missed in the book? Thank you.
Through you, Deputy Mayor. There's a capital project in for the, I'll call it the Sobeys and CIBC parking lot, and in behind the post office. There's $350,000 allotted to replace all the stormwater works and to upgrade paving in that area because it is quite rough and it is quite old. So that is under a capital project to fix that area up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of council that have questions regarding this budget? I see none. Is council committee of the whole ready to make a recommendation to council regarding this budget? Just a show of hands if you're ready to move on. Okay. So Candace, sorry, Mr. Parkinson, did you have further?
I apologize. I don't mean to interrupt, Deputy Mayor, but I thought I should spread some good news. I missed it in my update at the last budget meeting where I spoke about logistical improvements and fuel management. I just wanted to update council on our Adopt a Tree program for 2021. We successfully planted 60 trees, and we have another, I believe it's 120 people waiting for trees. Our goal for 2022, using that same $25,000, is we're going to try to plant at least 90 trees. And we're going to achieve that by buying slightly smaller trees so they're less expensive so we can get more trees in the ground. And we had some issues with getting them planted and staff resources. So this year we're going to look at trying to get a volunteer group to help. And maybe we'll get some trees planted that way to alleviate the demand on staff time and to try to achieve that goal of 90 trees. Now, if we're successful on our tremendous grant of $10,000, that could be expanded a little bit more going forward this year. But it's so sorry about that. I just wanted to update council because I thought it'd be important to get that good news out there.
Thank you. Actually, that's good to hear. And so if you don't get to everyone on the list in 2022, will we continue that into 2023?
With council's approvals and according to budget, yes, absolutely.
Great, thank you.
I think it's a good opportunity for us to lessen our environmental impact and also replace some of the trees that we have to remove that are dead, dying, or dangerous on the roadsides to use and maintain our canopy.
Great idea. So members of council appear to be ready to make a decision tonight. Candace, what do you need from us? I just want to make sure I go about this correctly.
We need a resolution from the committee to approve the 22 budget as presented or amended.
And I think you
with-
gave that to me, correct?
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Did you, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. Linda, do we need to have the committee add that 80,000 plus HST to the capital expenditure first? No?
If we say as amended, is that sufficient? Yes.
Am I losing people?
So I do have a motion here that I'll need a mover and a second for, that the committee of the whole recommend council to approve the 2022 budget as amended with an tax increase of, I believe, Linda, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe, are we going with, do we go have the blended rate of 2.4 in this document or the 2.45? Sorry, I can't hear you, Linda.
Can you hear me now?
I can now.
Okay, 2.45, excuse me, would be appropriate.
2.45.
Yep.
So I need a mover and a seconder for this motion. Councillor Rowley, Mayor Ostrander.
Okay. You want me to call the vote?
Yes, please.
Councillor Ron Anderson,
Yes.
Councillor Doug LeBlanc,
No.
Councillor Emily Rowley,
Yes.
Councillor Mary Tadman,
No.
Deputy Mayor Laura Connect,
Yes.
Mayor Brian Ostrander.
Yes.
That's carried.
Thank you. Find my agenda. Okay, so next we have question period. Is there anyone wanting to log in for that? No?
No.
Okay, so I have a motion to adjourn the meeting at 7:26 PM, and I just need a mover and a seconder for that. Councillor Anderson and Mayor Ostrander.
Okay. Councillor Ron Anderson,
Yes.
Councillor Doug LeBlanc,
Yes.
Councillor Emily Rowley,
Yes.
Councillor Mary Tadman,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Laura Connect,
Yes.
Mayor Brian Ostrander,
Yes.
and that is carried.
Okay, thank you, everyone. That means that next week's budget meeting will be canceled. Correct? And this will come to council in February. Thanks, everyone.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Right.
Deputy Counsel?